So, to extend the particular topic and to just put our focus on the central theme of this very particular content. I believe, written by Abdul Ghani Sheikh. Abdul Ghani
Sheikh.
Abdul Ghani Sheikh. Okay. This friends is all about this lesson. The understanding behind this lesson and the comprehension behind this lesson is all about generational gap. Generational gap. Look, we are living in a family. You must be, maybe there is extended family, there is joint family system, or whatever kind of family you have. We are living in a family where some older people, or we can say our grandparents are there, okay, or we had some kind of people who are up. So what I mean to say, the back eras is actually the gap, the generational gap. We as the human beings, or we as the, whether we are children, whether we are some we had some siblings, we had one kind of the friendship, the peers, we had one kind of gap, we have one kind of era, we are living in this era. And our grandparents, when I say the parents are there, some people who are old, or some people who are of different eras. Is between the gap, that is between the young generation and the old generation. This generational gap, this generational gap this content is actually talking about, it is just giving us the notion as that it's just communicating about the generational gap of the people. Like, it's been delineated in different examples, or different kind of stories, or different kind of situations are being created in this lesson. It is because of that is being given us understanding that the generational gap is present in our society, in our cultures. Okay. For example, I will just talk of some things that will just give you the idea that how the generational gap can be defined, or how it can be viewed. Okay. This generational gap is actually, for example, we are living in this era, we are living in the current period, and we had some kind of, whether social outlook, whether cultural outlook, whether understanding, whether what I mean to say is ICT, or we had the exposure, or we can say we had some kind of facilities, we had some kind of privileges that were not in the previous period, or that were not in the old period, or ancestors are there, or some people, or grandparents, the kind of period that they were living. We cannot see, we cannot just observe these things that we had in the current period. We cannot observe these things maybe in the previous era of time. Is actually just whether in terms of social outlook, if I will talk of cultural outlook, if I will talk of just this technology, or we can say some political outlook, whatever kind of understanding, it is totally different. It's totally different. Just see the simplicity and homogeneity of the older people, or the ancestors who are living with us, the kind of their attitude, their understanding, they are just focusing on their style. And we, as in living in the present era, we had some other objectives, and some our mind outlook and understanding is different from that. For example, we had the technology, like the kind of transport is available, we can add education, we can just approach different cultures, or we can have some kind of education from abroad, or we can approach so many countries, or we can live in a different place for our education just to gain the objectives. But this kind of, as this lesson or this content is just is kind of understanding it, this content has delineated, is just giving the different idea that the people who are living in the old period, they are not expecting this kind of attitude, this kind of this style of living. They are not expecting this kind of style of living. That is why they are talking like the same. They lived in their particular period, so their mind outlook and understanding is like the same. Okay, okay. Like you had parents in your family, okay, grandparents in your family. Your understanding may be to some extent different as compared to them. Okay, it's not your fault. It's actually the culture. It's actually the era. It's actually the understanding of the present era. Is actually the culture that is influencing you. The kind of exposure, the cosmopolitan outlook, national outlook, your mind exposure, your privileges that are in the present period, is because of that the kind of gaps being created between the young generation and the old ones. Okay, okay. Because sometimes parents are the grandparents are expecting some kind of things from you, but you are not taking them seriously. You know why? Because your objective demands something different. Your ideology demands something different. Your understanding is something different. So the generational gap is simply your understanding and their understanding. Maybe there is some gap. Your comparents or your grandparents' comparents or the people that live in old, what I may say, the traditional period, there is a kind of gap. Okay, the kind of technology that was in the previous period and now this time it is totally different. It is varied. Okay, or the kind of privilege that were in the previous period and now it is totally different. So this gap, whether in terms of social perspective, okay, whether in terms of political perspective, whether in terms of occupational perspective, okay, whether in terms of what I mean to say, this cultural perspective, it is all different. It is all different. It is what I mean to say. It is varied. It's not homogeneous. It's not. It is heterogeneous. If we just had the kind of differences between the traditional period and the era where our grandparents, even I should say the traditional people were living, and this kind of era, this kind of period. If we just what I mean compare between the two, you will see so many things. You will see so many gaps. You will see so many privileges that are different. You will see so many differences and gaps will be just, you can observe the kind of gaps and that are clear and they are manifested in different attitudes and different directions. So this content, I believe, this kind of content is also communicating as a message that the kind of challenges, these are always in your families, in cultures, in societies, in associations, in your ideology, in thought process. Such kind of things are always prevailing. Okay, so you need to just focus. You need to focus on particular. You need to focus how to deal with it. It doesn't signify, for example, your parents are to some extent, or your grandparents are sometimes they are just with noisy sound, or maybe they are just reinforcing you in one way or other way, but you are not expecting that kind of reinforcement, or you are not just having the exposure badly reinforcement. But we should not bother all kind of things. We should be very mature to understand their, what I mean to say, their problems as well, because this is a gap. The generational gaps are there. Generational gaps are, these are obvious, these are clear, these are vivid. You can very well understand the generational gaps. You can't expect the same kind of ideology of your grandparents and yours. As I am saying that, I am just providing you the kind of, we had some era, we are living in an era, we are living in the century that is totally different from the previous period, that is totally different from the orthodoxy, that is totally different from traditional way of life, that is totally different from this what I mean to say, the orthodox or the previous ideology. Okay, so this kind of difference is obvious. You can see, you can observe all this kind of difference in your families, in your associations, whether you in your relatives are there, or maybe there are some other neighbors who are there. There may be some people of older generation living with you. Okay, so you can very well focus. You can very well observe the kind of differences that are clear and that are significant. Okay, here what I just want to convey before going through the detailed part of this very content. Let me say the central theme, the understanding, the what I mean to say, the kind of lesson that this center want to communicate us, or this writer want to communicate us, is just simply that there is obvious generational gaps are there. Generational gaps are there, but we should not just try to take it otherwise. We should just hold it. We should just be mature. We should just be rational. We should be very comprehensive, or we should be very. We should have the kind of patience, and we should bear all the things that or these people who are living in, we are living in that era, and we should also have the kind of patience to bear their kind of understanding, their comprehension. We should not just be critical, or we should not just be, because their understanding, their level of understanding was bad. Okay, our level of understanding, we had some other kind of notions. It's not. I'm not saying just there are other things. Their understanding was at a particular time that was rational. If we talk of traditional people who were parents, grandparents who were living in the era, they were having the kind of attitude, understanding that was up to mark at the particular period. Maybe some positive things we had to just receive all the positives. But some things are, for example, if your grandparents, sometimes the grandparents in your family, maybe your nani, okay, or your maybe who is there, she will say like. You are getting education in a particular city, you are approaching a particular city, she will thought again, or she will have the kind of understanding like my granddaughter is in Srinagar. For example, she is in Srinagar, whether she is safe, whether she has this kind, it's obvious, these kind of things are genuine. But for example, as this explanation of this particular lesson is just delineating the idea that the Nani was Abile, the Nani, she was discussing about, for example, the kind of earthquake was in a particular country. That will be totally different from this very particular city, okay? But she was taking it serious. If such kind of earthquake happens or prevails in that country, is my daughter safe? Is my granddaughter safe? But there was neither any kind of connection of this very particular location or that, but she feel it stressed. She got distrusted, okay? She got frustrated. She had some kind of curiosity whether my daughter is safe or not, irrespective of the gaps that the kind of healthcare that was happening or prevailing in different countries. But this place was safe. This place was because they were living in this particular area. That area was out from that very particular the country where such kind of episode happens. But she feels it's a kind of traditionality, because the kind Nani, the Abile Nani, she was not expecting the kind of, she was not having the understanding that such kind of episode happened there. She thought perhaps the influence would be here as well. Same, she was talking of transport. For example, there was some accidental case happened in a particular transport. Some buses are they stopped and maybe due to some problems, but it was a kind of news. The same Nani take it otherwise. But it was my granddaughter is there, but it was out from that very particular place. She thought that my daughter is in danger. But it was totally different, because her granddaughter was at one place and the episode happens at different place. So she became curious. She was very curious to know about this episode, because it was totally, as far as our understanding concerned, because as per my understanding or this era's understanding, it was totally different, because the kind of episode was happening prevailing some, it was at different place, because that very particular place was not in touch with this, okay? It was different and that was different. So this kind of curiosity in the mind of our grandparents, these are happening, these things will happen, but we should not be, we should have a kind of patience, we should just take all these things logically, and we should give them birth, because of that the generational gap is there. Sometimes your understanding and our grandparents or maybe some parents, the understanding is not matching, but you should have the patience and you should look maturely, you should look maturely on that very particular things. And it's because of these things are in every culture, and within the passage of time the things should be taken serious, and these things should be taken with mature understanding. You should be very comprehensive, and out of that very comprehension, out of that very logical understanding, you will just go there and resolve the problem at the particular time as well. Okay, this was the idea behind this particular topic. Okay, you got it? Any confusion? Any confusion? Can you pose any question? If you have any problem or any difficulty in understanding, you can very well ask the question as well. Any question? So now, inshallah, we will talk about some other details of this lesson in the next lecture. Okay, and we will just focus on some characters are there, and we will just go line by line, and we will just observe some other things. And that will just help us and sucker us to take it beautifully and just had a very serious concern and just had a very serious acknowledgement of different things. And inshallah, we will learn all the things as well. Okay? Thank you.